You make money. Every month, income arrives. Maybe it's a salary. Maybe it's a payment from a client. Maybe it's something you worked hard for. And for a moment, just a brief moment, you feel okay. You feel like things are fine, like this time it will be different. But then something happens. The month moves forward. Days pass. And slowly, quietly, without any single dramatic event, the money is gone. Not all of it, but most of it. Enough of it that you're back to checking your balance and feeling that familiar tightness in your chest. You make money, and somehow you're still broke. So here's the question that most people never really answer. Where does your money actually go? Not where you think it goes, not the obvious things like rent and food, because you already know those. I mean the rest of it, the money that exists after the big expenses, the money that should be yours, that should be building something, but somehow never stays long enough to do anything. Most people assume the answer is simple. They spent too much. They bought something they shouldn't have. They made one bad decision. But that's not usually what's happening. The real answer is quieter than that. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's start with what most months actually feel like. You get paid, or you receive money from wherever it comes. And for a day or two, there's a kind of relief, a lightness. You feel financially safe in a way that is very real and very temporary. You pay the big things, rent, bills, whatever, can't be ignored. And then you breathe. But then life starts. You need something on the way home. You grab food because you're busy and cooking isn't happening tonight. You pay for a subscription you barely use but haven't canceled. You see something on sale and the price feels right. A friend suggests going out and saying no feels harder than saying yes. Small things, normal things, reasonable things, one by one. And here's what's interesting. None of these moments feel like spending. They feel like living. 2 weeks later, you look at your balance and you feel something close to disbelief. The number is lower than it should be. Much lower. And you run through your memory trying to find the moment it happened. The big purchase, the mistake, the reason. But there isn't one. That's the illusion. The belief that if something was going to hurt you financially, you would feel it when it happened. That pain would arrive in a recognizable form, a large number, a clear decision, a moment you could point to and say, that was it. That was the problem. But most financial damage doesn't feel like anything. It doesn't announce itself. Think about the money that leaves your life in small amounts. The coffee you buy, not because you need it, but because it's part of how you move through your day. The meal you didn't plan for. The convenience you paid for because you were tired and time felt short. The digital purchase so small it barely registered. The thing you bought because everyone around you was buying it. The subscription that renews while you sleep. Each one of these is almost nothing. And that is exactly why they work against you. Your brain is actually very good at noticing sudden change. If you spent half your monthly income in one afternoon, you would feel it. You would register it as a problem. You would react. But that's not what happens. What happens instead is gradual, consistent, invisible, a slow dissolve. Think of it like a container of water with a small crack at the bottom, not a break, not a flood, just a tiny, steady leak. You look at the container in the morning and it looks fine. You check again a few hours later and it still looks mostly fine. But by the end of the day, it's nearly empty. And you didn't watch it happen. That's what's happening to your money, not one big leak, dozens of small ones. And here's the part that most financial advice skips over, because most financial advice wants to give you a quick fix. The problem is not how much you earn. Read that again. The problem is not how much you earn. You could double your income right now, and if nothing else changed, the leaks would simply get bigger. Because the issue is not the size of the container. The issue is that nobody is watching the water. The real problem is three things working together. The first is lack of control. Not the kind of control that means restriction or suffering. The kind that means you are in charge of where money goes rather than watching it go and wondering why. The second is lack of a system. Money without a clear destination will always find its own path. and the path it naturally takes is determined by habit, impulse, and the environment you live in, not by your goals, not by your future, just by whatever is in front of you at any given moment. The third is lack of intentional allocation, which is a complicated way of saying this. You've never decided in advance where your money is supposed to go, so it goes where everything goes when no one is paying attention. Outward, away, into the hands of whoever asks for it. Now let's go deeper for a moment, because understanding why this happens is more useful than just knowing that it happens. Why does small spending feel harmless? Because it is harmless once. The problem is that it never happens once. It happens in patterns, and patterns are invisible until you step back far enough to see them. A $5 purchase is a $5 purchase until it's a $5 every single day purchase, which is $150 a month, which is $1,800 a year. Same action, completely different reality depending on whether you see it as a single moment or as a recurring pattern. Why does the brain ignore slow loss? Because the brain evolved to respond to immediate threats, fast change, sudden danger. It is genuinely not built to feel the weight of gradual financial erosion. When something doesn't hurt right now, the brain files it under acceptable, under normal, under not a problem yet. And this is important because it means the struggle is not a personal failure. It is not a character flaw. It is a mismatch between a very old brain and a very modern financial world that is specifically designed to take small amounts from you constantly. Every subscription model, every one-click purchase, every sale price that expires soon is built around this exact weakness. They know your brain doesn't feel small, repeated losses, so they divide the cost until it disappears below the level of concern. And you pay without deciding to pay. Which brings us to the shift, the idea that changes how this whole thing feels. Money doesn't disappear. It goes where you didn't decide to send it. Think about that for a moment. Nothing is being taken from you in the middle of the night. Nothing vanishes into thin air. Every dollar that leaves your account goes somewhere, to something that received your money and gave you something in return, a product, a service, a few minutes of convenience, a momentary feeling. The question is never, where did my money go? The real question is, did I choose to send it there? There's a difference between reacting to money and directing money. And this difference, this single distinction, is what separates people who always feel financially stuck from people who feel financially in control, even when the numbers are similar. Imagine two people, same income, same city, same cost of living. The first person receives money and begins reacting to the world. They pay what needs to be paid when it comes up. They buy what feels right when they encounter it. They adjust and improvise and manage each financial moment as it arrives. They're not reckless. They're just responding, living in financial real time. The second person receives money and begins directing it. Before the month starts, they have decided, even roughly, what each portion is for. Not with a complicated spreadsheet, not with extreme discipline, just with intention. This amount goes here. That amount goes there. This portion stays until I decide otherwise. Same income, same city, same cost of living, completely different relationship with money. And the difference is not willpower. It's not intelligence. It's not earning more or caring more. It's simply that one person has a path for their money and the other is watching money find its own. Here's what changes when you become aware of this pattern. Not discipline, not restriction, not the anxious tracking of every small purchase, just clarity. When you see the patterns, really see them, behavior shifts naturally. You start noticing the invisible habits, the automatic purchases, the things you're paying for out of routine rather than genuine choice. And awareness does something that willpower never can. It makes you a participant in your own financial life instead of a spectator. You don't need to become a different person. You don't need extreme budgets or radical sacrifice. You need to stop letting money move through your life on autopilot and start being the one who decides its direction. Even a simple decision changes everything. Not a perfect decision, not an optimized decision, just a made decision. I'm going to send this portion here. I'm going to hold this amount for this reason. I'm going to cancel this thing I haven't used, not because someone told you to, because you chose to. That's control. not the punishing kind, the quiet, powerful kind that comes from knowing where things stand. So let's bring this back to where we started. You are not broke because you are irresponsible. You are not broke because you don't care. You are not broke because you lack discipline or intelligence or the right personality for handling money. You are broke, or you keep ending up with less than you should have, because your money has a path. It has always had a path. The leaks have always been there. The patterns have always been running. You just never chose the path. And the moment you decide to choose it, even imperfectly, even one step at a time, the entire dynamic shifts. Because now you're not reacting to money, you're directing it. And money that is directed goes somewhere. It builds something. It stays. The question is not whether you can afford to think about this. The question is, can you afford not to?